When I speak to groups about living a choice-driven life, about increasing self-awareness and proactively designing your world, the number one complaint I hear is, I don't have time for that. So let's talk about time. Time is a human concept. It's made up, which means its value is dependent on our expectation of it. Bear with me here. Time is speeding up. The value of 2 minutes 100 years ago and even 25 years ago is very different than the value of those same 2 minutes today. Think about it. 100 years ago in the 1920s, it was expected that once you sent a letter from, say, the US to the UK, it would be months before you received a reply, because the letter had to make its way from your home across the land to the nearest seaport, on a ship, across the ocean from the European port to the recipient's home, and then they had to read it, write a reply, and the whole thing had to happen in reverse. It could take 2 months or more to simply receive a reply to a letter. And you know what? That was okay. No one really complained about that they didn't have time for that because it was expected. It's just what was. Flash forward to the 1950s. Phones were still analog with actual switchboard operators. Homes rarely had private lines. The phone line was shared by many families. So to make a phone call, you had to go to the phone in your home, and if another family was using it, you had to wait and keep checking back until the line was clear. Then when it was finally your turn, you had to contact the operator and wait for them to connect you. They had to make all of the necessary switchboard connections, which could take several minutes if you were calling long distance especially. And eventually, it would ring at your friend's home. If they didn't answer, there was no answering machine or messaging service, so you had to hang up and wait and attempt the whole process again later over and over until they answered and you finally connected. So it could take quite a bit of time to simply speak with someone on the phone. But again, that was okay. It's what was expected. It's just what was. The value of time is relative to our expectations of it. All right, so let's just go to even 25 years ago in the 90s. If you wanted to go online and say send an email, you had to be in a chair in front of a computer plugged into power in the wall, and then you had to wait for this to happen.
You've got mail.
That was only 20 seconds, by the way, and I imagine it felt like a really long time. The actual amount of time that it took us to connect to the internet in the 90s was 2 full minutes. And at the time, that was okay. It was expected. It feels long now because our expectations have changed. And because our expectations have changed, the value of that 2 minutes has also changed. Now, in that same 2 minutes, I can tap the internet icon on my pocket-sized computer, aka my iPhone, that's with me at all times. I can Google something, text the result to my friend. They can open it on their smartwatch and be reading it all in less than the time it used to take us to simply connect to the internet. The value of time is relative to our expectations of it. And our expectations have increased, which means the value of time has increased as well. Because we expect things to happen quickly now, we relate to time differently. You'd think with all of this additional technology and time saved, we would have lots of time and freedom to think about ourselves, to be proactive about what we want next for our lives because we have all of this extra time, right? Wrong. We no longer have the patience for a letter to take 2 months, or a phone call to take all day, or even to wait 2 minutes to access the internet. Suddenly, time has become much more precious because we are used to being much more productive in that same amount of time. Time is speeding up. We don't have more time. We can't have more time because it's made up to begin with. There's always the same amount of time. Our expectations and value of time have just shifted. Because time has sped up, our lives have had to speed up too. Everything is expected to happen super quickly. There are expectations that you will make a decision very fast, react very fast, move very fast. It's led to our lives being a lot like a pinball machine. We bounce off of one reaction to an obligation, moving so quickly. It feels nearly impossible to pause. Think about, where do I want my life to go next? Take a moment to prioritize and choose, where do you want your day or much less your life to go? This effect has us spend most of our lives in survival mode, and we don't even know it. Survival mode is making life decisions out of reaction or obligation. I work with people to step outside of this way of living. Living this way isn't a matter of making more time or having more time. It's a matter of prioritization and choices. The first time I began to notice all of this for myself, I was in my late 20s. I was in the dream job with the dream husband who was also in the dream job. We took vacations everyone was jealous of. Our savings and retirement funds were solid. We had access to a private plane, a private yacht. Lots of people wanted my life. Shoot, I was living the American dream. Thing is, it wasn't my dream. Let me explain. As I was approaching my 29th birthday, my then husband suggested that we buy a house so we'd be ready when we had kids. Why? Because that's what you're supposed to do when you're 30 and living the American dream. You make a family, right? The idea of becoming a parent, it made me pause. I was loving my travel-focused life, and a house and kids, they would change that. And I'd always had some secret thought that eventually I'd have more time. I'd be able to do what I really wanted to do, follow my purpose, all of the cliches, that would come eventually. The serious thought of starting a family, that felt like having even less time. And all of this made me take a beat. I went away for a weekend alone, and I created the time and space to think about what would my dream life look like. If I had all the time in the world, how would I spend it? I took time to extract myself from the pinball machine of life and just think and consider my options. I paused life for the weekend. I realized that much of my life was based on obligation or reaction to an external source. I went to college because no one in my family ever had, and I kind of felt like I had something to prove, and also because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I quit college as a reaction to my former husband's job. My career happened out of a reaction to financial stress, out of an obligation to follow social standards, which said I should want a career making a lot of money. Whenever I was offered a promotion, I said yes, because who turns that down? Not because it's necessarily what I wanted. So here I was, 29. I had this amazing career in IT tech, a woman in tech. I had this amazing, sweet husband who had a great career. We had this dream life, but I'd never been very technical. I never set out to have a career in tech. As a kid, I wanted to be a teacher, see the world, and then adopt a lot of kids and be a stay-at-home mom. When I looked around that weekend, it felt like I was sleepwalking through someone else's dream life. I felt like I was sleepwalking through someone else's dream life. At that point, I didn't know what my dream life looked like. I didn't even know how to consider that. I didn't have the space to consider that. I just knew that this wasn't it. So when I went back from the weekend, I shared all of these discoveries with my then husband, and we quickly discovered that his dream life looked a lot different than mine. So after the most amicable divorce in history, we're now friends, and he's living his dream life, and I've created my own. Does not mean that you have to quit your job, divorce your spouse, become nomadic like I did. You don't have to do it the way I did it. I believe everyone has their own beautiful, unique path. I have one client whose dream life is to be a good wife, a good mom, and a sustainable farmer. For some people, climbing that corporate ladder isn't a reaction or obligation. It is truly their dream. I have another client who's in his 70s, a retired electrician, and his dream is to leave a worthy legacy for the children of today. All of these lives sound truly beautiful to me, and none of them require that people magically have more time. It came down to resetting expectations, prioritizations, choices, and a commitment to practicing a different mindset on how they approached life. My only wish for you is that you are able to choose your own path. If all of this is sounding eerily familiar, then you're not alone. I guide people in reconnecting to their values, reclaiming their priorities, and living a choice-driven life. In fact, I hold space for an entire community of people who are exploring life through the lens of choice. The meadow is separate from the drama of social media. Here, in addition to rich, diverse community and all manner of methods for connection, you also will find on-demand classes, each of which has its own way of supporting you in beginning a practice, so you can notice where you have choice. You can learn more and take your next step at explorethemeadow.com.